name the unit for Rubizhne, and they have this idea of restoring the city once Ukraine liberates every inch of the land. They want to restore the city, since a lot of brothers and sisters in arms were laid to rest there. Some physically, some were retrieved um, on the shield, as they say. And there is very emotional part in just this connection with the city. So yeah, but the base is in Hostomel. So you've probably heard about Unit 3018, Rapid Reaction Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine. A lot of times you just never thought that that's my unit, but whoo, well done. Now you know. You can spot a couple of tweets in the nest. They are about my brigade, about the fundraising effort. I'm gonna be in a section before we crashed more information about my unit and some of the most, let's say, public figures in my unit, because obviously I can't share a lot of information. But those guys who are public, who are bold and young and already on the spotlight, I can just try showing some of them. Otherwise, obviously, faces will be covered, call signs only used, and OPSEC will be maintained for as I breathe. So I'm pretty sure you won't be able to get any kind of secret data from me. So just don't try. There's no point. That's for those who think that they can do that. Maha. Um, if you have any questions, comments, concerns about anything Ukraine related or my unit related, please go ahead. If you have some weird questions, please go to and I'm here. Like ask them not here, but somewhere else. Here we are fully dedicated to support of Ukraine and Ukrainian defense forces and democracy overall. Thank you for coming back. For those who have rejoined to our space, we only have 200 people now. I getting down because we haven't had to share like retweeting sessions. Guys, we need to get everyone back. So if you be so kind to retweet and more than grateful. If you don't know how it's done, you can just retweet the tweet, the last one I posted. That's also about I mean, it's a retweet of the space. It's really
It just gets
important
less
because
attention, Fernand. That's the key thing. People should
yeah,
quote tweet because that gives up to 10 times more boost.
I'm just so fed up with this Elon Musk's
Not before, no,
shenanigans.
it's actually not Elon Musk at all. It has nothing to do with them. Beforehand, they had algorithms which were equally disturbing. It's just a different setup now in the algorithm. We
Yeah.
No, seriously, we have not been shadow banned, by the way, since this stupid takeover. Beforehand, we were shadow banned from time to time, as you remember.
I do remember that for a couple but I just like I didn't know that quoting is also what makes it boost. Like
Quoting
yeah.
is more important because you create individual content. It shows
I'm so
engagement.
done. I'm so done with this shit. Okay, I'm
Yeah, me
gonna
too.
do the
I'm
quoting now.
you and I. You're significantly more advanced in social media than
You,
I am.
you and I. You,
No,
you and I.
I will not sing.
You and I. No,
I will go back to my
please
balcony
don't.
with. I will go back to my balcony with David Waldorf very quickly.
I think I think we have Nick. Graham is just like dying. Graham is dying of laughter. Um, Nick, I think you wanted to say something.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Brown has buttonitis. They all don't want to talk to us, Feline. I don't know. The one thing which we were always good at is getting to the microphone.
I think the thing I'm good at is surviving at this point. This is my main skill. Woohoo! Level of survivability 200%.
Which brings us back to providing plate carriers, helmets, and the likes to our friends at the Rupees unit. And we discussed it a little earlier, by the way, Feline, that essentially those aspects should be covered by means of a generous support order from another NATO nation. And the Ukrainians should just tell them, guys, this is what we need. Please fill out the form digitally, please. Go out and buy it for us. That should happen, right?
Well, I agree with you, Axel.
We're on the same balcony. Of course, we agree.
Yes.
So, Feline, what's happening tomorrow? What's the plan? What are you doing with the Rubish unit? What's going on?
Can't disclose.
Okay,
I tomorrow
describe
is
it.
a miss.
You get up, you
Uh,
pick up the phone, you find out how
who
many
tells you
messages
that
you
I'm
have.
gonna? Okay, question. Who told you that I'm gonna get up? Who told you that I will go to sleep? Is the thing.
You told me that typically after about latest 30 hours, you fall into a comatose sleep.
That happened. No, I have to stay awake for 5 rows. How it goes. This is the way.
This is the way. You do know that sleep deprivation leads to people behaving as if they were drunk, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Trust me. I know. I know. I know. Oh no, no, no. No, actually, what day is it? Wednesday, yeah.
Tomorrow is
Uh,
Wednesday, yes.
okay, so tomorrow I will probably meet some volunteers at lunchtime. In the morning, I'm gonna bid farewell to some of the operators because they're doing their stuff. Uh, then we'll probably manage some tasks. Hopefully, we're gonna get some confirmation on some transfers, and I'm gonna be able to procure some things already. So thank you for your donations, but we still need a lot of things to keep on pushing, keep on buying, keep on procuring, keep on analyzing. And I will do some translations for the television. I'm almost done with that, and then I will probably, if the stars and planets align, will go to the hospital to check on my friend. If it's not gonna happen tomorrow, then it's gonna happen on Thursday. It solely depends on his condition because he's undergone another surgery, and there are still 4 to go. And I don't want to overburden him. Uh, and since today is Kay's birthday, tomorrow I will go to our common friend who set up some just present for her because she kept on saying that she doesn't need anything, but we need to find her uh, proper some parts of special equipment for her role in the staff. So we're gonna be doing that, and I'll also join the space at some point. I don't know when, I don't know how. I hope in the next couple of months, which I was saying, I'm gonna come with some of my unit's representative. I'm gonna show them what Twitter is, who we are, what we are. I've already started to explain how it goes and what's being done on the background because, yeah, they have the chance to be here, be with me, and finally realize how it's happened. They already were at least my balcony, which looks like a warehouse. And just it's a very surreal feeling sometimes seeing them in person after such a long time, seeing them only like on screen as a video. Yeah, so tomorrow hopefully I'm gonna be coming every day like in old times. March, April, May, June, July, August of 2022. I don't know whether a lot of you have heard me so much, but I've been here for a while. I feel like I'm like a ghost of MriyaReport. I'm always here, but not really. I'm like eternal spirit or something.
Well, if I'm not quite mistaken, we've founded this stuff in some shape or form, so we will always be attached to it. It's like children, you know?
No, I don't have. I have a dog who is my
See, there
child.
you go. Then you get it. Let's try to get to Nick Brown if he finally knows that he has his hand up.
I don't. Oh, did I put my hand up?
Like about 10
That's a long
minutes,
time ago.
minutes ago, and we were trying to incite you to come up and have a chat with us. Verlaine sang for you. David and I shouted down silly stuff from the balcony. We tried to incite you to get up. Nothing happened.
I don't remember. Well, no, I went to get food. I don't remember what it was. I remember only that it was a witty riposte to something that David said. I should probably have just interrupted for 2 seconds and said it, and then Raver spoke, and then the moment has gone, and it wasn't all that witty anyway. I'm sure, because if it was, I might have remembered it. Apologies.
David, does that sound sensible?
Well, Nick knows he just normally interrupts me anyway, so I'm a little bit confused as to why he didn't do it in the first place.
All righty, good.
Well, because Raver had his hand up first, and I would use. It's difficult, isn't it? So it's difficult to know exactly what. It didn't feel appropriate at that moment, but I agree that doesn't always stop me.
So the first time forever you were stopped. Oh, that's interesting. We need to try and replicate these conditions at some stage.
He stopped himself, David. He stopped himself. This is even better. It's like running to the stage in the theater, not falling into the orchestra. Anyway, Verlaine, quick question for you. We've seen in recent days, if not, recent 10 days, we've seen video after video after video of large amounts of Ukrainian troops, both on training grounds, evidently abroad, as well as in Ukraine, Western Ukraine specifically. Large amount of infantry, large amount of tents, corralled combat arms training and the likes. What's going on there? Are the Ukrainians having military picnics?
Without disclosing anything, I would say
Oh,
the
come on,
picnic will
stop
be
with these
postponed.
caveats. Of course, you're not disclosing anything untoward. We know this.
The picnic will be a bit postponed. We are waiting for the trees to fully bloom, and then we were.
That's what we all had in mind somehow. That there needs to be a sufficient amount of good ambience, a bit of green leaves and the likes.
Yeah, green leaves and potentially some beach vibes. This is where it's going. I think at this point Ukraine has has decided to prepare as much as possible for whatever it's gonna come, and finally the offense will gonna come. And in our situation, we are fully aware how big will be the price of this offense, and everyone is aware that they might lose their life in every moment just because of some like accident, stupidity, coincidence, serendipity for someone. on the Russian side, I mean. And we're trying as a nation, as a defense force, to prepare as much as possible to preserve as many lives as possible. So everyone is training, whoever can train, and Oche will probably tell you once he's here that he keeps on saying this in his TikToks and his Insta stories, that um, if you are not a part of the defense force, you should be focused on training, like drone skills, extreme driving, TCCC, like firearms, and so on and so forth, because professional army gets drained, they get wounded, they die, unfortunately, but this is the reality. So everyone should be ready if we want to have our whole like country back. Everyone should step up. And if someone, especially in my age or slightly like, so I'm 31, so people from 20 to 40 and 50 should be more than on the same page that we can defend, right? We still have the physical capabilities of defending our country. Whoever is younger, or like, obviously they need to make sure that they're in safety because they are our future. Unfortunately, we've been losing so many decent, stoic, bravest people I know. Like we call it the like the in Ukrainian it's the blossom of the generation. So, or the blossom of the nation, if you paraphrase it. So the best of the best, and it hurts. So in order to liberate everyone and bring finally some peace of mind to everyone, knowing that we have won this war, we have to get ready. Like everyone should get ready. If you can't take part in any of the training, just do something like volunteer, find some connections, or share some information. Like now we're doing whatever we can to um, fight Russian propaganda. This is very important because even like Russians have bought a lot of different people, especially even Ukrainians abroad. We have example, like perfect examples of people just going for money, not for the cause. And it's never been about money for us. For us, it's a matter of existence. That is why it's so extremely important to stay united, and great deals happen when people come together. I'm a living example of that. I have hundreds of stories, which I will definitely tell after the war is over, how different people with different background, with different mindsets came together and made something really unique and beautiful. Or like we were acting not thanks to but in spite of. And sometimes we were um even like, I'm still sometimes impressed by what I've accomplished, and I feel like I haven't fully even processed some of the things I've people point that highlight that, and I'm like, but that's what I should have done. Is like, no, that's not something you do every day. That was something like, how. I was like, well, I was just extremely focused in the moment. And there are a lot of people like that, especially on the front line. They're doing just impossible things because they don't have another choice. It's either doing something impossible or then regretting it for the rest of their lives. And I think I've been rambling for way too long. I'm sorry.
That's not rambling. That's completely fine. But it fits with one other point I was about to make, because That's why we're all here. Disaggregating and dissecting, and therefore getting rid of Russian disinformation and making sure that people are aware of what's going on really on the ground. And that's why we're still here. So that's a lot of work and that has to be done. And if we don't do it, nobody else will.
Right, it's I got all gone a little bit silent here. Aaron, I can see that your hand is up.
Okay, David, thank you. I feel like America seems to be dragging their feet with this F-16. If Sweden enters NATO, does that open or squeak open, wedge any little door for the Gripen? What I've been reading and listening to about the Gripen is that it can use, is it the Meteor missile, that English missile? There's a ramjet on it. And one of the problems with this F-16 is the below the body air intake. Now, Ukraine does have some airfields that they could.
So sorry, I'm gonna Aaron, I'm gonna stop you there. Listen, so F-16s have flown and used Ukrainian airfields before.
Can I finish? So
Sure, I'm just pointing out though, right? Because I'm saying it's a bit of a non-argument, really.
I'll keep going and see what you think. You need a longer airfield for an F-16 than you do a Gripen, and the F-16 doesn't have as strong landing gear, so it needs a very smooth runway. So you need a good runway. Now, Ukraine does have some good runways, as you've seen. We've seen F-16s land on some runways, but what Russia is good at with their satellite, late as it is hitting fixed targets. Now they have ballistic missiles that can do ballistic movers, so they're very hard to hit even with Patriot. So, and I'm not sure you want to have an airfield just covered by a Patriot that will still be hit by ballistic missiles. So they can put holes in the few airfields that they do have. The missiles that an F-16 has, I'm not sure the Americans would give them their latest version, which is their latest tech, because that tech is designed to beat China. And their missiles, although they've got a range of 100 kilometers, need to be fired from 50,000 feet or 40,000 feet to get anywhere near that distance, because if you fire them from low, they're going to use all their power just to get up. Whereas those ramjet missiles almost power themselves by the ramjet system. So those missiles are going to be a lot more effective flying at a lower area. And the Gripens have been designed to fight Russian planes. And I'm just thinking, if it's been so hard to get the F-16s, if you've got Sweden, all you need would be 12, because the Russians just don't want to lose their aircraft. They don't care about their pilots, obviously, but they don't want to use their aircraft. But maybe maybe you're right, and I'm off on the wrong path completely. I'll step down.
No, so Hopsy's come up. So let me say something first that you're probably not aware of. Denmark has basically said summer. Said the summer break, whatever that means. Presumably, they mean the summer school break or something, or in summer.
For the end of June in Denmark.
Oh, right, well, that's even better, right? I was going to say July, August. So before the end of June, they'll have solved the F-16 problem, right? So your points about the Gripens, look, no one's going to complain if the Gripens arrive, but I think the things about ballistic missiles, these are the things I would say, right? So if Russia was able to just en masse kill all these, do something to these airfields, they probably would have done it already, would you not think? Because as it stands, Ukraine's still running their air force, right? And so sometimes they put stuff off a road, sometimes they don't. But if Russia had the capabilities doing this stuff, they would have taken it by now, right? Because if they'd have been able to remove all Ukrainian airfields, then they would have given them an advantage, surely. But I'm going to go to Hop C now. Hop C, I'm interested to hear what you've got to say.
Unfortunately, my audio cut out for a little while, but it sounded like the premise was that the F-16 is not a good fit and the Gripen is. Could you maybe update me just a little bit on what else was said?
So Aaron, you tell me if I'm wrong. So that's what initially I thought that was being said. But I think what was really being said is maybe the Gripens might be a bit better because of some reasons. My thought was actually I don't think the airfield discussion is actually a bit of a discussion, because they'd have just taken them out if they could. And we know you can repair airfields, right? The repairing airfields is a thing, and people practice it.
Can I just also state that the latest air-to-air missile the Americans wouldn't be supplying, because it's version 2 or whatever it is, they'd be keeping. They don't want the tech to drop to Russia, because they need that. They rely on that air-to-air missile to defeat China, and that the Meteor missile, is it the English missile with the ramjet, is a lot more effective, longer range missile, because you don't have to shoot it from so high, and that with the Gripen, they're a lot easier to maintain. You can have less maintainers, and because of their ability, I think the Ukrainians, you might find, are using a lot of different tricks up their bag.
I'm just curious
to fly off a lot of different areas rather than their main air bases that could be hit by ballistic missiles if F-16s were based there.
Aaron, here's out. I think Hopsy and I can dispel with that. Hopsy, please.
Well, I mean, I hear certain assumptions being put forth that the Gripen is more easily maintained. I say a military aircraft is a military aircraft is a military aircraft. You put them in an operational setting, the maintenance hours go up, and frankly, that is not the deciding factor. Availability, the ability is the 100% the deciding factor. The Gripen is an awesome airplane. Nobody's debating that, but there aren't that many of them out there. And as far as a ramjet, missile versus a solid fuel missile, not a factor. We're just trying to push the Russians back to over their side of the line, and it's always about targeting. And the ability of the F-16 to operate off of quote unquote unimproved fields is proven. They lots of our Nordic friends have operated them off of all sorts of stretches of highway. Runway repair, there's a reason why there used to be this weapon that was used in the Gulf War called the Durandal, and it was air delivered, and it was designed to tear up runways. They found out it was basically ineffective because it's pretty easy to fix a runway. And the Russians would have done it by now if they could. I mean, they are desperate. So while I think I would love to see Gripens end up in the Ukrainian inventory, the numbers wouldn't make the difference. The numbers that are available wouldn't make a difference. You can say, okay, well, you just give them 12 and they'll operate 12. Well, if you want to keep 12 aircraft airborne in an effective manner, you better have 24 or 36. And those numbers, suddenly you see the numbers don't really work out. Midlife upgrade F-16s are out there. The maintainers are out there. There are thousands of trained F-16 maintainers that speak every language in Europe. So it's really the only expedient fit. And what do you think, Axel?
Yeah, you took pretty much all the points off the board already, and I wanted to highlight that the F-16, for example, has been starting off landing strips as bad as the Singapore motorway, as complete. Okay, it's a decent motorway, but still, they've touched down in Estonia on what you would describe in America, basically an interstate, or what we would call it a motorway here. The F-16 is easily maintainable. What you just highlighted is absolutely clear. There's more maintainers, more skilled personnel. You can cycle them through better. We have more spare parts and more easily available, and we will hit the numbers. And that's the key thing. Ukraine will need anywhere between 150 and 180 aircraft over time, sooner rather than later. There are not that many Gripen around. They're nice to have, good to have. I mean, no question. Give them 2 squadrons of Gripen, please deliver them. Nice red ribbon around them, but they won't make the difference.
And I want to add a little bit to this as well, right? Because the runway issue is something that comes up, but I want to explain it a little bit. Repairing holes in runways, as Hop C said, is not difficult, right? They've been practicing it for a very long time. They've I mean, practicing it since the early 1980s, 1970s. Sorry, we had the engineers had a runway and runway support squadrons, and that's what they did, right? And it was all the basis of the way to do it. Really simple, right? They've got specialist quick drying cement, and they also have specialist stuff that'll go in. So even these really big bombs. So you might have seen there was a big bomb the other day. They've got this 1.5 ton bomb that the Russians are using. So even if they use something like that, it leaves a hole maybe 15 meters deep, 10 meters deep, or something like that. It's pretty deep, right? And these are the things the runway runways things do. But they just dig out the bits, they fill it up. They have these specialist pieces of concrete that already go in. They fill it up, hammer it down. Specialist quick drying cements if they need, and they also can put these. It's like a piece of aluminium. It's corrugated aluminium that they can put over the top, and what they can do is just nail it onto the surface if they so needed, right? Or even just put that in there and put some concrete over the top. This is something that's practiced all the time. I say all the time, on a regular basis, even in the British Army. So the idea that Ukraine wouldn't be able to do this is just probably not there. Hopsy?
I would even say the operational art goes back to World War II when they developed pierced steel matting, and you would all the time. Even, the Germans had it figured. Everybody had it figured out. You'd see huge piles of gravel, 100 meters off the runway, and a dump truck hidden in the woods, and that was, it was. The initial filling of the hole didn't take a lot of skill. It just took some hands and effort, and you could bomb the living daylights out of an airfield and have it back operational, in 4 hours, 6 hours. And and people don't forget, sometimes we only repair half the runway, or if they don't hit the taxiways, lots of I've done this on expeditionary fields, land on the taxiway. I mean, there's more flexibility than you think.
Yeah, there were pilots who actually landed on the street leading to the airbase.
Yep.
Happens all the time.
So let's be a little bit more pragmatic, or as my friend Falain always says, productive. The key aspect is not to say, we have a concern, oh, this may not be perfect, oh, they can't do it this way. No. Give them what they say they need, give it to them in time, sell it to them if you want to, lease it to them, lend it to them if you can. Saves liquidity and saves credit, but at the same time, just do it. Let's figure out the rest together. This is logistics. This is an operational problem. It's not a philosophical problem. It's not a doctrinal problem. It is not a problem of surmounting impossibility. On the contrary, this is something doable. Hop.
And what really grinds my gears is this problem's been answered in dozens of countries before. You know, you have countries that, you know, went from Soviet legacy aircraft to operating F-16s. I think Egypt or I mean, they just then we've done this. We've trained air forces that weren't nearly as competent as the Ukrainians and made them competent and able to operate the aircraft at some level. So it's again, Axel, what does it always come down to? Say it with me. Will.
Exactly. Political will. You could also say maybe, you know, balls. Sorry. Seriously, yeah.
Oops.
Oops. You went seriously. Come on. You can see Zelensky's brass balls. You can see from outer space. What is it without pygmies and cowards?
There used to be a manager in the MLB, and he was getting questioned one day after a game about why he made this shift and changed pitchers at this time, and he finally just looked at the reporter and said, "Because I'd rather get in trouble for something I did." And that is a philosophy that needs to come into play here.
100%. G-Man.
Just going to join this little discussion on airframes, and you're completely right, of course. But I'm just going to go through it again. I mean, Gripen. Looking at Google, there were, according to Google, of course, 271 Gripens of all models as of 2020. I mean, Eurofighters would be a better bet than the Gripen because 571 of those made as of October 2020. But the winner of this lottery is totally the F-16 Flying Falcon, with just over 4,600 aircraft built since production was approved in 1976. So the numbers win in terms of the inventories that are about to place. Eurofighter would be the next in line, in my view. Gripen certainly a very capable aircraft. As for the missile, the Meteor is a very, very capable aircraft, which has been, missile beyond visual range. So it was UK and other countries in Europe's upgrade to the AMRAAM, the M120. And it was a competition between what became what's the company called? MBDA, which is a joint venture created from Matra, BAE, a couple other companies, Alina, I think Leonardo, and it was a tender. As far as the UK was going, it was in tender between Raytheon and the Meteor, and the Meteor won, and it's been qualified to be fired from the Gripen, the Eurofighter, Francis Rafale, to date, from what I can see from this Wikipedia article, which may or may not be accurate. So Meteor could certainly be a great missile, but at the end of the day, it's the airframe we need. We'll look after the missiles after that. And that's the game in town is still F-16. If anybody wants to give give Ukraine Eurofighters and Gripens as well, then absolutely ask around. But and maybe it'll end up being a proportion, a mixture of aircraft as it was with the tanks. But we'll see. But as everybody says, it's political will. Somebody just has the political will or the cojones to just do it, just send them. I don't recall from all my reading of history, which is varied and widespread, I don't recall in the 1940s with Lend-Lease, I don't recall any sort of squabbling going on about, we'll not send them this because they might not be able to train pilots or whatever. It just didn't happen. broken the space. So in the meantime, I'll just say, this is the MriyaReport. Please retweet the space. We're here to advocate for Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
Yeah, Haram Slava.
Heroin Slava.
Yeah, and as we've debunked the myths about training, etc., that it's always been a case of give it to them and get people trained. Right there, you are. It's not something that it's never a reason not to do something, right? Because you can always get them trained, right? Just start the process. And we return to that subject all the time because weirdly, as we say, pygmies and cowards, they, for whatever reason, they are frightened, and it's clearly fear that's involved somewhere, and the rest of it. And eventually, they'll wake up. We hope. The space has all gone quiet again, hasn't it? Right, so I'm going to go to a tweet that was sent to me, which is the top. It's always when you read something that from a news media or something, it's always top, isn't it? It's top person, right? There's a hierarchy. How do they know they're a top person, a top general? Because there are many generals, right? Have they hierarchy in there? But anyway, a top US general on what Russia does wrong. I see your hand up, by the way, Alan. Does wrong coming offensive and our mistakes. Not letting Ukraine in NATO led to this war. And they've added POTUS and Olaf Scholz in here. Not letting them in future leads to more Ukraine war, a clear-cut case of right versus wrong, says Petraeus. That's nice, isn't it? And I never knew that's what Petraeus looked like, which is why I was saying, what is a top general? Anyway, seems to know what he's talking about, doesn't he, Alan?
Yes, David Petraeus does know what he's talking about. I just raised my hand to ask if we would have more singing because Verlaine sings so beautifully, and I love hearing her translation of Ukrainian words. Absolutely loved that song she sang earlier.
At this point, my acoustic singing has become so addict. I try to be more or less all organized with my singing, but it comes whenever and goes whenever. The only way to fully hear me singing is just being with me in the car, and Starsky had a decent amount of me singing. I think he's fed up with my singing at some point. Though his hardcore metalcore voice is on a whole another level.
Do you see Operator Starsky here?
Not necessarily now, no.
Good. So one constraint, one bordering criteria, one restriction has already been dismissed. So you can sing if you like to, because Alan wants you to, if you wish.
He's never been
disappointed. Alan didn't want to hear me sing.
No, Ryan, I don't.
Oklahoma, go back to your operatic performance capability. Try to play this out in a small little dingy bar in New York, first and foremost. See whether that gets you anywhere. And if you're not ending up in London's West End under a bridge, then you can come back and sing here. Because your singing is as awful as mine. And that is pretty damn dreadful, as David will tell you.
It's not great.
Whoa. I am a
Actually, just sing
classically trained choral
something else.
musician. I just gave it up a decade ago. Well, 2 decades ago.
You know what the difference between talent, genius, and training is, right?
Here's the thing, guys. I promise better, and I see see him on the panel that I won't be singing without him, but it happened that I did. So I broke the promise. Do you mind if I sing a couple, like couple parts of that song so he won't feel this betrayed?
Only if he joins in. He needs to do the harmonies.
Or I can sing something else, like, because I did promise, but I felt the urge to do that. So, let's vote. We have democracy, so let's vote.
The
Who wants to?
the vote is 100% in favor of you singing this.
Okay, singing what? The same song or something
Whatever
else?
you can sing best at the moment.
I propose anything from Roger and Hammerstein's
Bella Ciao. Bella Ciao, then.
I think we have Ukrainian version of that, to be honest. I'm not even joking. I think
there is a Ukrainian version of Bella Ciao. I know because I saw I saw this tweet and I was going, I sort of recognise this, and so I asked a question. They went, "It's Bella Ciao. It's the Ukrainian version."
There is a Ukrainian version, and it's called Ukrainian Fury. I have yet to hear the full like lyrics, so this is the thing. I know it exists. It definitely exists. Never. This is the problem. So how can I sing something?
Don't.
Which I haven't
Exactly.
had.
Technical impossibilities are completely fair. So why don't you give it a go and sing whatever you like now? As long as we have John listening there and Alan still being giddy and Oklahoma being silent, we're good to go. Uno, dos, tres.
Verlaine, you should charge money for this.
Well, we're all donating.
We know that you never interrupt the drummer when he goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll drum this into Oklahoma. Don't worry.
It's kind of pointless at this point. Okay, I can sing you Korabli by Hardkiss. This is the favorite.
Anything, Verlaine. Your choice. That's really what we were saying.
Okay. it's a little bit going overboard, but yeah. Once again, I'm doing this just for my brigade because I love them dearly and I want to save them, and this is why we're here promoting Ukraine, promoting fundraiser for Ukrainians, so that's why I'm singing, just for that. Ти дзвониш вночі і мовчиш не про мене. Знаєш, даремно, я все давно відчула, п'ю мед із вином, бережу ці останні сили тіла, бо твоя любов тяне нас на дно. Тільки ти про цю ну, але байдуже в твоїх очах, сні останні Венеції ти пробачав, мені все, чи це знак, що поки всесвіт мовчав, ти палив мої кораблі. That's a prequel. I'm gonna sing the full one a little bit later.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Cool. Alan.
I would love to hear a translation of those lyrics for Elaine. And I'm also wondering, when did you begin to sing? And what's the earliest song you remember from your childhood?
I think it's somewhere the identity of Ukrainians. I mean, just being able to sing whenever they want to, whatever they want to. So it's a part of the, I don't know, Ukrainian code. So we have a lot of folklore songs, but we also have a lot of songs just by beautiful poets and writers nowadays. I think I started singing when I was 2 or 3, because I remember that vividly. I at some point I was placed on a chair like it was a stage, and I was singing. Plus, I was in the choir when I was in the musical school, and I had my 7 years of um, being part of the choir in the musical school, and I was singing in school, and then I just kept on singing because why not? Singing is a great stress relief. Plus, it's very um pleasant sometimes to just go sing in the middle of the town and look like see the glimpse and stares of the people walking towards you, thinking like, oh, what a weirdo, and like, oh, that's nice. Usually I'm just singing whenever I don't care. Like um this is how my soul express itself in the different conditions. And I can also sing in like really rock-ish way because I mostly like rock music for the most part. But I am meloman, so as a majority of the Ukrainians, I can sing whatever if you have time. And just I'm gonna be back in a second. If you have any questions for me, just hold them.
Well, I find Verlaine's singing absolutely spellbinding. I love listening to her sing, even though Twitter is not the best venue for singing. Verlaine makes it the best venue and sings from the heart. You can you can feel it in her voice.
It's very
I,
relaxing.
I wonder what G-Man and Nick think. How do you respond to Fairlane's songs, G-Man?
Yeah, creates a joy. Music is it's different forms, but there's joy there. I mean, spiritual songs are there in my belief to sing praises to our Lord, but songs are being given for us to raise our spirits, to raise our fellow man's spirits. Um, and yeah, I can see where Brilliant is coming from. My family here that lives at home with me, my wife plays the piano. Can't sing. She'll admit that. I'm not talking out of turn here. Cannot sing. My daughter is in a choir, and so I just love going and listening to. And there's something about choirs as well, just a group of people just singing in unison or singing parts and with the harmonies. Um, One of my sons plays guitar and a bit of piano. My daughter also plays piano, so it's a musical household. I like to sing. I'm not musical otherwise, but I do like to sing. And I can understand. I've been in the mountains and just sang. So I don't think I've emulated Fairlane in singing while walking up the street, but I have heard people do it. And yeah, they might get some strange looks, but people will laugh or smile. Whereas if somebody's just walking up the street talking to themselves, mm, people will cross the street to get away from them. So yeah, that's my view. But yeah, for Elaine, singing is awesome. It was one of the I actually listened on Spotify this morning to a piece that was put up when she was singing the other day. And I didn't hear it on the space. I wasn't on the space at the time. Shame on me. But thankfully, they're on Spotify.
We'll be able to issue a whole album from Spotify. Nick, do you sing?
I was going to strongly disagree with you, Alan. I think Twitter is an excellent medium for singing, and I was about to give a demonstration.
And Nick, what will you be performing?
Oh no, that's all right. I'll spare you that this evening. I've had a glass of wine, and I can only sing in tune when I'm sober. Verlaine's great when she sings. I love the way in which just her voice on its own, no accompaniment, is it's like well, it's night here right now, but I just think of it as a cold dark night in Ukraine. All is quiet momentarily on the front. That voice sings out, and yeah, that's it's the voice of hope. I put my hand up with a different point, if I may. I've just retweeted a video, I don't know if we've had it already, of a Russian, well, it says prisoner of war, but that's fine. The fellow who wrote it said prisoner of war. Of course, the POW, of course, the Russians would call him a prisoner of the special military operation. What I found interesting is that, well, have we had this? I am, so Dmitry Stanislavovich Egorov from St. Petersburg, born 1997. I came to Ukraine from prison. The Ministry of Defense came to my prison and promised an early amnesty and salary. Now, I found that interesting because it's not Wagner. So the Russian Ministry of Defense is also recruiting people from prisons. Many agreed. We did not understand where we were. When our first military stopped coming back from the front, the first deaths began, we began to panic. There were a lot of those who refused to go on missions. They were punished very severely. They were beaten, publicly humiliated, sent to a pit. I'm not quite certain what that means. Both Russian and Ukrainian idiomatic translations do lose something sometimes. They were sent to the front ranks as suicide bombers, dressing them up with explosives. I don't know whether they were like given like fake explosive belts. One time, we were all put up against the wall and the commanders fired a warning shot from a machine gun. So guys, think twice before you come here. This is not our war. Ukrainians are defending their country, their territory. We have nothing to do here. You won't be able to sit here. Everyone here dies. So a moment of clarity there from Dmitry Stanislavovich Egorov. But the most interesting thing about that I found was that he didn't say that Prigozhin came. He said the Ministry of Defense came to my prison. And I didn't know if the I didn't know whether it had been acknowledged that the Russian army itself was recruiting from prisons, but there you go.
So Nick, yes, it was. It was before Christmas. I think it was November time. There was a point where they were. The suggestion was Wagner was really struggling to find someone, and there was a joke the MOD was trying where Wagner had failed, presumably because they were going, we won't be so nasty to you.
Well, the difference seems to be that whereas if you sort of don't put all your heart into it with Wagner, you have your head smashed in with a sledgehammer. Here you merely get some kind of fake suicide bomber mission, and they fire a warning shot. So actually, to be fair, I think these guys are probably getting a better, or perhaps we should say less bad deal than the Wagnerites. Maybe they're getting less money though, so swings and roundabouts.
Do they actually get less money? Because
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Can you get less than zero?
I'm just saying. I don't know what the A, notional, and B, actual pay structure is.
I think the actual is they just don't get paid, which is why they're complaining, isn't it? But anyway, G-Man, you had your hand up, and then Shaggy. Well, I've not seen you for a while, Shaggy.
Okay, on the subject of the Russian Minister of Defense, they have a wide and varied remuneration procedure. Not sure what the translation is. Basically, it involves vegetables. Yes, so potatoes, carrots, turnips, rutabaga, any sort of root vegetable, basically. Sometimes cabbages, but they usually rot. So that's basically it. It's vegetables. That sounds about right. They're probably paid in kind. I was just going to add as well, I'd read a a while back, an ISW bulletin confirming that the Russian Ministry of Defense was having a trawl of the prisons, trying to grab any prisoners that Wagner had neglected to grab already. So yeah, it bears some truth, I'm sure.
Yes, and Shaggy.
Hello, David. Yes, it's been a little while. I've been out on maneuvers, as it were. Right. Have you guys discussed the use of US citizens as illegal agents for the Russian government today?
Not that I'm aware of. I was out in the garden for a while, so it wasn't until, gosh, maybe 6 o'clock when I came when I was nudged to come around and join in. So I not since then.
Okay. Well, this is linked to this. Well, I'm linking it to this Donbass double D woman. Not double D in that way.
Yes, Donbass Double D. That's a brilliant name.
I can never put it out. Maybe I'll call it that from now. I can't pronounce her second name, so I'm just going to call it Donbass Double D. And a slightly unrelated but related indictment being put forward by a grand jury today. So on my thread, top post, not the thin one, Department of Justice is US citizens and Russian intelligence officers charged with conspiring to use US citizens as illegal agents of the Russian government. Defendants sought to sow discord, spread pro-Russian propaganda, and interfere in elections within the United States. So this is specifically to do with taking Russian money and interfering with the US elections. However, having read the article, which was out today from the Department of Justice, this could very easily be used for influencers, be used against influencers which are supporting the Russian war, the Russian side in the current war that's going on, aggression going on by Russia, especially and probably needing to, if they solicit donations and then perhaps send those donations to Russian organizations like Rybar and stuff like that. So the other day we were in a space, quite a few of us, Intel and people like that, and this was when this double D woman, who's an influencer for the Russian cause, was found to be a fake, and there was talk that everyone else would be okay, freedom of speech. Yeah, we're allowed to say what we want, blah blah blah. But this actual indictment by a grand jury would seem to pull the rug from under that idea somewhat.
Well, we like rug pulling, don't we?
Yes, yeah. So what I can do is I can drop down again to listen for a little bit while you guys scramble.
You don't have to drop down. You can stay here, Shaggy. You know you're an honoured guest.
Oh, that's okay. I just don't like hogging a speaker seat, you see, and I can see you're nearly full. So if you need to drop me, drop me. It's a fairly lengthy article. So yeah, get your chops around that, get your eyeballs around that, give it a little look. Maybe Alan, you do that, but you were there yesterday when we were talking about this, so you cast your beady eyes over it and have a little think. So what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say, Shaggy, I saw that article and I gave it a very quick read, but you do need to spend time with it. You're right. What I found interesting is that these FSB agents who are actually in the United States working with American citizens, they were essentially running a candidate for Congress from, I think it was the Tampa Bay area, if I recall correctly. So there are some details in this article that are pretty explosive to my way of thinking.
And yeah. Oh, sorry, Shaggy. You add your bit. I'll ask my question in a moment.
I was just going to say, yeah, that's all I was going to say. Sorry.
So, Alan, there's the thing. I get a little bit confused between senators and governors. They're both people who are involved in politics in some ways. Is Congress senators, or is Congress governors, or is it both?
Well,
question?
David, Congress is senators and members of the House called representatives. Governors are chief executive officers of states. So there are 50 governors, there are 100 senators, and 435 representatives in the House. So the Congress has 535 members. Actually, a little bit more than that, because there are delegates from the District of Columbia, from Puerto Rico, from American Samoa, and the Virgin Islands, as I recall. But they can't vote on everything. The 435 elected members of the House from the states of the United States are the voting members on all issues and on all issues that come up to the floor for a vote. So you were almost right, David. Your understanding of American government is, I will give it a
An
70.
F?
No, I'll give it a gentleman's C.
Oh, you're so kind. So then, therefore, then the woman with the unfeasibly bright teeth, Marjorie, so she's a senator then?
No, she is a member of the House. She's so members of the House are elected every 2 years. Senators have a term of 6 years, and 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years. No, Marjorie Taylor Greene is just a wacko with a seat in the House of Representatives. She's one of 435. Her power is negligible.
David, if you want a quick UK analogy, Congress equals Parliament. The House of Representatives equals the Commons. The Senate equals the Lords. That's a huge stretch, of course. And the governors are a bit like the elected mayors. So Andy Street in Birmingham or Andy Burnham in Manchester would be approximately the governors. The governors tend to stay in their own state. And the Senate is a little bit like it's the upper house, but the U.S. Senate has a lot more power than either the French or Dutch or British upper house. But Congress is a word meaning Parliament in the same way that the Commons and the Lords are both in Parliament. The Senate and the House are both in Congress. So the Senate, the House of Representatives is kind of the junior house. And the Senate is kind of the senior house. So the Lords analogy doesn't really hold up too well with the Senate, but otherwise it's not too far away because most countries have a lower and an upper house of Parliament, and then some kind of devolved administration in the regions with a certain amount of autonomy that they exercise.
Yeah, but America,
okay, thanks.
America is different because these are independent states who have co-joined. That's a different ballgame.
Yeah. I mean, etc. But every country is different.
They are extremely different.
Analogies go as far. Well, the United Kingdom.
Would you mind? The Senate is one of the most important active chambers. It's not just an upper chamber, because it actually, whilst the House has the purse strings, the Senate is the necessary tool for the long-term survival of the Constitution and ties the states and their political long-term interests back into federal government.
It's a little bit like that with the French upper house, which is considered to represent the regions and the rural areas more than the weight that's in the Parliament. Again, all these analogies are imperfect. All countries are different, but and the Senate certainly is much more than the revising chamber, which the average European Senate is. But just in terms of, I was more kind of trying to position it in terms of, numerically relative to the UK system. Although, of course, there are many members of the House of Lords. There's like 900, although a lot of them don't turn up, and there's only 100 senators. But anyway, that's the basic idea. And yeah, governors tend to stay in their state, and when a disaster happens in a state, Americans look to their governor and say, well, why didn't you do anything about that? So recently in Which state is Sarah Huckabee Sanders governor of now? Arkansas.
Arkansas.
So she became governor and said, I'm not going to take a single penny of that goddamn federal money. And then they had a tornado, flood. What was it, Alan?
A tornado.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, that evil socialist federal money turns out to be quite nice after all, and she's filling her boots. But that's the cut and thrust of American domestic politics for you.
Two more points of order,
Nick,
real quick. Marjorie Taylor Greene was regranted some degree of power again when she was handed committee assignments by the current head of the House. She had been denuded of any real power and was just a gum flapper until the most recent elections. And unfortunately, she's been assigned a spot on the House Intelligence Committee, which I think is horrible at best.
Intelligence? I thought she was only on Homeland Security.
Whatever, close enough. She's got security clearances and is afforded the privilege of U.S. intelligence briefings that she does not deserve. I don't think she's smart enough to understand what she's hearing. And anybody who talks about Jewish space lasers starting forest fires in California isn't worthy of holding office, in my humble opinion.
And how can they be trusted?
No, they can't. I was just going to say, Ryan, in fact, Liz Cheney has suggested that her security clearances be stripped because she's so unreliable and unpredictable. And Nick, when you say governors tend to remain in their own states, they only have power in the states they are elected to govern.
No, I'm just saying they don't go up and down to Washington as often. So basically, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is in effect a sort of one-woman Hungary. She's entitled to attend the meetings, but everybody tries to avoid telling her anything secret.
She's worse than that, Nick, but we'll go with that. You know, the Senate likes to call itself the greatest deliberative body in the world. This may never have been true, but now I regard the Senate as the greatest debilitative body in the world. And this is because of U.S. politics. In any event,
They need to get back to having real filibusters again.
Oh, I don't know about that, Ryan. I mean, a real filibuster is when you are required to be on the floor and speak endlessly. You cannot leave the floor. You must hold it with your speech, and so you shouldn't drink a lot of water.
Much like co-hosting the MriyaReport.
Well,
do you get deducted for repetition? Do you?
Well, there have been some great filibusters. Bernie Sanders actually had one a few years ago. But in any event, the only relief will come when your others who support your filibuster come onto the floor and you can have a dialogue with them. But you cannot give up your position as speaker.
David was making a reference there to a very, very long-running British radio show in which called Just a Minute, in which panelists have to speak for 1 minute on a subject without repeating any of the words. And it's kind of entered into the popular culture. You are not allowed hesitation, repetition, or deviation from the subject. Is it still going, David, you know, now that Nicholas Parsons died, the host, after like 50 years?
I don't know. I've not listened to radio since all this started.
I'm sorry I haven't a clue replaced
Exactly.
Humphrey Littleton with Jack Dean. Not unsuccessfully, I must say, but I wonder if anyone could replace Nicholas Parsons on Just a Minute. He hosted this show for 45 years. And it, like a lot of these very long-running shows, it became as much about the formula as about the content.
But then again, Nick, don't forget, David and I still long for the Goon Show.
Oh, the Goons. Yeah, the Goonie. Oh, eh?
I'm afraid I'm too young.
Really?
No, you can't. I mean, I was born in 1960, and I maybe had a couple of the repeats, but it wasn't really of my time. It was a little bit before and I was a bit of a late developer in terms of my comedy tastes.
And humour just escaped you, so there we are.
Yes, yes.
Oh, the Waldorf and Stettler show. Kermit got slapped.
People come to this space listening for an intelligent conversation, and all they do is they get abuse. We do have some hands though. We've got G-Man and Michael. G-Man.
Okay, yeah. Just linked to the link to the last spot would be that I was born in 1972, but the Goonies are timeless. So it's probably just a matter of sense of humor. Anyway, Macron, according to the Telegraph, as of earlier today, is working on a secret plan, or possibly, maybe as Blackadder would say, a cunning plan, with China to end the Ukraine war. Emmanuel Macron is said to be drawing up secret plans with China to bring Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table by this summer. And apparently, let's see, there was something I thought was quite funny. Yes, Bloomberg said an official from Mr. Macron's office had confirmed the plan for Mr. Bonnet to speak to Mr. Wang, who is Wang Yi, China's top diplomat, to establish a framework that could be used as a basis for future negotiation, reports have suggested. Rumors that white flags are involved in Macron's plan are spurious at best.
Mr. Wang.
I saw those.
Mr. Wang.
Yeah, I saw those reports, G-Man, Axel, and I also saw that that Lavrov is in Brazil, seeing President Lula da Silva, who is also styles himself as a peacemaker. Macron styles himself as a peacemaker. He must believe that he is in the running for the Nobel Peace Prize. Nothing could be further from the truth.
He's more to get a pacemaker than be a peacemaker,
but
in my view.
That's impossible, Alan. Macron already is in the job. He can't get a Nobel Peace Prize for nothing.
Well, others have.
Yeah, undeservedly so.
In any event, I don't think, I mean, this is such a stretch by Macron. I don't have the slightest idea what he's thinking. It must have something to do with business deals between French companies, Chinese companies, what have you. It is absolutely ridiculous. And we all know there is only one peace plan on the table, and it's President Zelensky's peace plan. It has 10 points, all essential. But the first point, and here I will make a contribution to the swear jar, pardon my Frisian. The peace plan follows thusly: get out of my fucking country.
Get off my lawn.
G-Man, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mr. Macron is, if one word is driving all this nonsense, legacy. He's on his second term. He's not going to get another term. Probably can't. It's all about his legacy. He's going to have a legacy, all right. We're going to laugh at him.
Oh, I agree with you. He would be better to look for a legacy like Mitterrand's. He needs to. He needs to show the world that the French know what love means. That's what Monsieur Mitterrand showed us. Nick, and then Michael.
Yeah, G-Man, Macron is term limited, so he can't run again. So he's in his second term of 2. That was Jacques Chirac's reform. That article in the Telegraph, I mean, I don't see why one would read it in Telegraph. It appears to be entirely lifted from Bloomberg. So I'll go and read the Bloomberg version. Regarding the Nobel Peace Prize, my wife used to work for the president of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, a rather ineffectual and excessively pro-Russian former Norwegian Prime Minister called Torbjørn Jagland. And I'm told by Norwegians that he was regarded as one of their least successful prime ministers ever. The Nobel Peace Prize, unlike all the other Nobel Prizes, is given by a Norwegian committee, not a Swedish committee, and they gave it to Barack Obama after he had been in power for less than 8 months. Principally, I think, because he wasn't George W. Bush. And I think even Obama was actually slightly embarrassed at the time. A year after
the decision
they
was
gave,
made when, not 8 months after he received the prize, then, but the decision was already made when. Nick, please highlight.
Oh, I mean, more than a few weeks before, indeed. The year after the Nobel Peace Committee gave it to Barack Obama, they gave the Nobel Peace Prize to the European Union, which is a peace-oriented organization, no doubt. But I'm sure the fact that Torbjørn Jagland was, as well as being chairman of the Nobel Peace Committee, Secretary General of the Council of Europe, an organization that receives a great deal of funding from the European Union, had nothing to do with this. And I noted that at the time when I sent the story into Private Eye magazine, who printed it and sent me a small contributor fee. So the Nobel Peace Prize, like all the other Nobel Prizes, involves convincing the jury. It's a bit like getting the Olympic Games. It's however you do it. I don't think Obama probably paid any bribes, but I know I do remember at the time, and you could see Obama was actually embarrassed. He would have probably liked to have received the Nobel Peace Prize, towards the end of his first term for something that he might have achieved, but it was actually quite embarrassing for all concerned, for the committee, for Obama, and for US policy, because whatever we think of Obama, he hadn't had time to do anything positive or negative by the time this decision was taken. So I'm not having seen a little bit of how the sausage is made on the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of it. I don't know. I suspect by now Mr. Jagland is no longer chairman of the committee. That was 2009. Very nice man, very poor English for somebody who has pretensions to be an international leader, and apparently, yes, not a particularly good Prime Minister of Norway. Although he brought with him to Council of Europe his Chief of Staff, who was absolutely excellent, real world-class asset to the organisation. So these things always go in circles.
Nick, I really think that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee should consider giving the prize posthumously and reach as far back in history as possible. And Obama was embarrassed to receive it. He had done nothing, and it was the most inexplicable award of the Peace Prize I think I've ever seen.
And arguably, I think even if you sat down with him over a couple of beers, I would say he probably wouldn't claim that he merited it with anything that he did in the subsequent 8 years. He was an average president, but I wouldn't say he was a great peacemaker. So no, it was very strange when it happened at the time. We just laughed our heads off when they gave it to the European Union. Interestingly, of course, when this war is over, there is going to be a backlog of several years, or perhaps a joint award of the Nobel Peace Prize to the people who have worked for peace, and perhaps the European Union might actually be a worthy contender this time. So these things go around and come around, do they not?
Yeah, Obama would have been a better peacemaker had he known really how to draw red lines. That's something Axel has taught me, and it's something I give Axel credit for. And unfortunately, President Obama did not know how to draw red lines and mean it. Let's just go on to Michael, and then Nick, we can come back to you. Michael. So the interesting aspect of being a peacemaker is some force needs to go with it. Michael, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I beg your pardon. I sat down after all day of conferences and stuff and tuned back in to the space, and I'm in sort of a wind tunnel here on my back deck, and I'm trying to sort of relocate. I apologize for the delay. I had several comments to make and appreciate everyone's insights about every topic on the space. And I just wanted to first let you know of my appreciation for this space. It is an absolute privilege and pleasure to listen to it and to speak anytime, you know, you put your hand up and you get recognized. It's an absolute honor. Thank you to everyone. Actually, frankly, I was derailed by this, by the previous speaker's comments about Jewish space lasers. That really kind of derailed my thoughts. Just some background on me again, because I don't come on here very often. I'm an overhead guy. For those in the former military, whatever, will know what that means. And I was wondering if we could at some point, I'm not trying to change the focus of the conversation, but I would really be interested. I've been contacting and speaking with Gunny offline about getting, a dedicated hour to talk about the contributions of overhead. It's complicated, it's sensitive, it's a tricky dance to talk about it, but we can talk about it because there's a lot of publicly available information, and we can't go beyond that. But I just think it's fascinating what we're seeing happening on the battlefield. It's all indications are that overhead is a contributor in a major sense. And I just wondered if there's anyone else on the space from other countries, intel analysts that would be willing to venture into that arena, because again, it is super sensitive. Although the US,
Michael,
yeah.
Can you explain what overhead means on the battlefield? You're not talking about how a corporation's balance sheet, are you?
No, I beg your pardon. I'm talking about satellite reconnaissance, colloquially referred to in the business as overhead, non-air breathing. In other words, if you go to the ADS-B, the Automated Dependent Surveillance Broadcast System, which is the new way that airliners and aircraft, reconnaissance vehicles, and anything flying in national airspaces or international airspaces, ADS-B is now the modern way to track aircraft by GPS. And so you can go to these websites for ADS-B. There are more than one, and you can actually see the day's reconnaissance taking place around the Crimea. We don't have, for instance, RC-130. We don't have reconnaissance aircraft overflying the battlefield because it's a contested airspace. The closest that any U.S. asset or EU asset, regardless of the country, and there are legions of men and women aboard these aircraft, whether they're manned and unmanned, or flying around the periphery of Ukraine. But you can see what's going on from a signals intelligence collection standpoint, from an airborne perspective. What you cannot see, and it's because it's so sensitive, and of course the U.S. has the high ground, as we call it, with many constellations at varying orbits of these fantastically exquisite vehicles that are capable of doing the work of the nation, protecting national security. This is all focused on the theater of operations, right? So to me, it fascinates me, may not fascinate anybody else, but I think we see indications of the intelligence coming from these assets, these spaceborne assets. And while we cannot go into technical capabilities, we can talk about what we're seeing on the battlefield that is reflective of intelligence coming from space and airborne. Particularly, for example, the extremely accurate targeting of individual pieces of hardware, whether it's using an M777 with a GPS round. How do they know where that is when the Ukrainians fire that round? How do they know the geolocation of that APC or that tank or that EW piece of equipment that the Russians have out there in the woods? You can't get it unless you have eyes on, or unless you detect it electronically, or, well, electronically also meaning like radar satellite, which is all weather day night, forest penetration capability. You can, it's just I think it would be a fascinating discussion, but maybe I'm just sort of in a little small crowd, and we don't have to satisfy my desires, but I just wanted to offer that up as a potential future topic.
Oh, it would be a fascinating discussion, Michael, and not only about the technology in use in space, and not only about all the surveillance aircraft that are flying over the Black Sea and the Baltic, especially looking at Kaliningrad, for example, but the focus of space satellites and what they can see is absolutely astounding. And we do know that the United States does share intelligence with Ukraine on the battlefield for the purpose of commanding the operations on the ground. So it would be a very fascinating discussion.
Yeah, I would obviously agree with that. One of the trends that I've noticed, because you can't fly over contested airspace with a manned reconnaissance aircraft unless you have air dominance. One of the things you suffer from is the distance away. For instance, even the RQ-4B and any of these other EU platforms, regardless of the country, they have them up. You can see them flying along, along the borders of Ukraine, peering into Ukraine. The challenge, the distance away from that emitter. An emitter can be anything. It can be a cell phone. It can be a drone jammer. It can be a Russian radar system, air defense system, whatever it is. If it's broadcasting on a frequency, it's an emitter. But the further you are away and the less platforms you have, the harder it is to geolocate that particular emitter. So let's say, for example, there's Russians have popped up a Buk SAM missile system, BUK, and its associated radar. If you're on the periphery over near Poland, flying along at 35,000 feet, trying to figure out exactly where it is, if you're in a single platform trying to locate it, then you have to locate it over time as you move in order to geolocate it. You got to get a fix here. You got to get a fix in another 30 seconds as you move, so that you can triangulate, right, and figure it out within hopefully meters or feet. The amazing thing is, I need to be careful here. From space, you can do the same thing, and this is well known, right? It's like trying to find, let's say you're trying to find a vessel that's in distress on the open ocean, using Intelsat and using commercial satellites. You need more than one. The more you have, the tighter the fix on the broadcasting emitter. Just like, I don't know how many of us on the space fly drones. I fly a DJI Mavic drone. I have since 2018. And you typically don't launch it unless you have at least 5 to 8 satellites, GPS satellites in view. And that allows you, if you launch the drone out of your backyard and you go flying it over your neighborhood, whatever, if you drop dead of a heart attack, well, you have a timer set on it before the battery expires. It will come back and land exactly, and I mean exactly where it launched from, on your patio, on your back deck, in your backyard.
And Michael, will it call 911 for you if you did drop of a heart attack? I just want to say, Michael, there are many ways to peer into a battle space, many ways to peer into a theater of operations. And you can fly reconnaissance vehicles over contested airspace, because if it's contested, there's no air dominance or air superiority there. Michael, I want to take this opportunity to go to Fairlane, because drones are so important to the mission of the Rubige unit. And we're raising money for the Rubige Rapid Response Unit here on MriyaReport right now. and you can find a tweet. The first tweet right up in the nest allows you to go and make an important contribution. Be as generous as you can. You can go right up there, find that tweet, follow it to a PayPal donation page. For Elaine, go ahead, please.
When you're talking about drones, regardless whether it's DJI or something else, UTEL and whatnot, you have to be fully conscious that we don't have GPS in the majority of the areas, so it's impossible to usually use that function, because firstly, Russians have been jamming all the frequencies. That's point one. Second one, it's being spoofed all the time. So apart from not having GPS, the majority of the drones are being operated in the manual mode, which is extremely hard, almost impossible. At this point, it's possible, but it's mostly like pure skills and we call it drones marksmanship. To do that, plus since the beginning of war, our drone operators have established their standard operating procedures in terms of how to launch, how to land, what to do in all the stages, not to be detected, not to be identified, not to get your location revealed. And DJI drones, if we talk about Mavics, are being used solely by the recon units closer to the objective, since even if it's fly combo more, it's going to be flying for maximum 15 kilometers. That's what we got with the extended batteries. That's like the record breaking distance. And if we use Matrice 330 RTK, 300 RTK, that's slightly longer duration of the flight, but still, in the majority of cases, GPS is something we would like to have, but usually uh, expect not having anything. And drones have become essentials and consumables, and at this time it's a war of drones, not the clones, for better or for worse. I know that in some of the countries it's actually not allowed yet to conduct reconnaissance only with the drones. You have to have an eye on a target. For Ukrainians nowadays, it's impossible. Plus, it's saving lives. We have a lot of memes. How old school, like there's like a photo, a picture, like old school USSR officers saying like, "Go send the recce platoon to that like location so they can do the reconnaissance." Like, but we have drones. Like, why should we endanger the personnel? It's like, but this is the doctrine. But we have drones. Yeah, and since the beginning of war, pretty much every second soldier within my brigade had the chance of operating something that flies. I'm not saying like UAVs like Lelega, like Chakun, like or multi-rotors and whatnot, but something small. Everyone had the chance of doing that. For the sole purpose of, if something happens with the drone operator, for God's sake, they're gonna have a chance to substitute him and keep on with the mission. Nowadays, we lack drones because they are usually under maintenance, or there are certain areas of operation. Once again, then it's hard to operate with like the cohesion in the air, especially when you don't have the ground control for it fully established, is a bit hectic, especially when you're battling not only enemies jamming, but also your own EW assets, because this is what's happening nowadays. The EW equipment does not uh, choose who to jam. It's jamming whatever. So you have to find a way to counterbalance it out, or find the bands which work specifically in that area, and then cooperate with so many units that it becomes very stressful for the majority of the operators. But I think we can talk about that once we have some of them on space. I will get one of them definitely, maybe even two. I don't know whether Snake can actually speak English as well, but you have me, so I'm gonna bring at least Oche, so he can shed light on that. So it won't be just me talking about that. But overall, we also, like, actually the first procurement will be me buying, me maintaining one of the drones which was hit really hard, and us buying some substitute. This is like top priority, and then I'm gonna go with radios. Hopefully we're gonna have fun. Then I'm gonna go to some pieces of equipment not even mentioned on the list of wish list, because there's just too many things to do at the same time. But overall, it's a great topic. It's good that you are bringing it up, because I feel like people think that drones aren't making much of a difference, and they just fly back and forth.
Verlaine, may I ask a question? And by the way, let me say it's an absolute honor. I'm so proud of what you're doing and what's going on there with your unit. You have a spot in my heart. My question has to do with the GPS jamming. Again, that's a known emitter source, right? I would think, as we look forward to future counteroffensive operations, that if I was king for a day, if I was having access to intelligence being shared from the US, the allies, whatever you want to call it, I would be asking to put the top of the list, the number one item, one of the top items would be identify, fix, locate each of these GPS jamming devices. Apparently, I didn't know this until a couple of years ago. You can order these online, but they must be prolific. But they must also apparently be, they don't have to be, but they must be close to the battlefield. Otherwise, if you're trying to jam GPS, say from across the border in Russia, then you're going to be, pardon my expression, fucking up your own navigation systems in your own country. So these things must be prolific on the battlefield. They are emitting. There is a known frequency that they emit on, which coincides with the frequencies that are used to control the drones. If I was king for a day, I would be trying to identify, locate, and target every GPS jammer in the theater. Do you have an opinion on that? And I'm sure there's some you probably couldn't admit.
They are doing that already. There are also jammers being destructed by the Ukrainian army, and they do that with drones. So they are doing that also.
Right. GPS jamming is a little bit more complicated than just dispersing it in that fashion. I don't think that we will go into much detail. But Michael, I would suggest that you look up GLONASS, and then you know why the Russians don't care. And they couldn't care less as to regional interlacing or in any kind of fashion overlap. It's irrelevant to them, has no bearing on it. And they've lived extremely well with this in the battlefield. There's various good reasons as to why their EW efforts are widely distributed. And whilst the Ukrainians managed to get a Krasuka early in the conflict and got another 2 assets thereafter, it does not help us improve, so to say, countermeasures easily. Let's leave it at that. And unfortunately, there is no such thing as a simple solution in that regard.
No, I quite agree. Thank you, Axel. Yes, I'm aware of GLONASS, and but I wasn't quite aware of its success given some of the past fiascos displayed by the Russian forces. Whether all
For
their
the little
units,
they need, it's working well enough.
sounds like it is. Thank you.
Yeah, Fairlane, I'm really looking forward to some of the Rubige units, drone operators being here with you some night. I'm really interested in their training and their mission on the battlefield. John Spencer, who I hope will join us later tonight, but John Spencer has said that the U.S. military and Western militaries around the world are rewriting their doctrine regarding drones, and saying that every infantry unit, every artillery unit, every unit essentially needs an attached drone unit with it. Drones are becoming indispensable on the battlefield to look, identify, point, and warn. Drone operators have a big job every single day. Fairlane, can you talk about that a little bit?
To be honest, that's a given for me that you need to have an attachment. You have to have an operator within every section. And apart from that, you have to have a separate UAV reconnaissance section when you are conducting the reconnaissance, obviously, and you have to have a separate reconnaissance unit which conducts aerial reconnaissance, and you have an attachment within every section. This is like best case scenario if you have enough equipment. It's like there are three things which you should be doing with a drone. Detect. So like wait a minute, I need to do the proper order. Detect, identify, and something else. And in English, I'm just having it's more than midnight, so in this moment I'm just having a little bit of weary kind of situation. Anyways, there are multiple functions of a drone and drone operator, and their job is extremely difficult because you have to keep on not only operating in very stressful conditions. Obviously, you can, if the equipment allows, you can do that from the trench or from the properly established battle position. If you're operating drone or UAV which flies for 30 kilometers, obviously that's more than that's the range which is more than safe for ish for the operator, because it's still in the range of artillery fire from the enemy or from the other thing, and in this kind of situation I would like to point out that mostly it's also the experience of the drone operator that helps to, for instance, um, detect something when you don't have like thermal imaging hidden in the shrubbery, in the greenery, in the bushes, and then just finding it, locating that, properly placing it on the map. So one of my friend, I will talk about him. His call sign is Panda, and he's actually the one on the right. If you look at my ping photo, he's on the right. He has even like Panda tag on him. He's the one who analyzes shitload of data daily, because all the crews send him all the information they got, and he's double checking like hours of video in terms of detecting, identifying, locating, and then rating everything. And it's a massive effort, and crews are working on rotations because it's physically really hard to be on alert for such a long time, and there is an established procedure So even if you have an attachment like one drone operator, it's still not enough. Under these circumstances, if it's like a one mission, and just you conducting a recon or an ambush, or you're doing like some sort of a raid, then having one is fine. But when you're doing something constant like a main defense battle, you have to have a full set of UAV or drone operators on alert 24/7. That's like a must. What else? It's I understand completely why the doctrines are being reshaped, because of the future, and we need to adapt. And the war in Ukraine right now is proving how important it is to keep up to date with the modern technologies, with what our troops are able to, master. And luckily, we're just so lucky that the people in a very dire situation have these inner resources of mastering whatever you tell them to, because they don't have any other choice. And I feel that we were so successful in drone operations, not only because our guys are so masterful and are so motivated, just because they feel that their life and the life of their loved ones depends on uh, their ability to operate something. And for some guys, it's like driving a car. Some guys compare it with driving a car or flying a helicopter, which they hope they're gonna be flying at some point of their life. Or some guys um, uh, compare it in their heads with the experience of um, you know uh, flying some sort of like on jet, but on a lower altitude and with the bigger responsibility. But what kind of responsibility can be bigger than flying the biggest jet, which actually was destroyed by Russians? If you don't remember, then I remind you that Russians destroyed the biggest cargo carrier in the world just because they could. They
And what
also
was its name?
Mriya.
Ah,
Mriya, Antonov 225 or on 225.
and
So
who are we here?
the remnants to restore our dream, because Mriya means a dream or to dream. Um, like people have forgotten, not everyone, I'm not generalizing, but overall, forgotten that it all started with our dream of joining European Union and just being independent from Russia, and it's still the same. I guess anyone wanting to say something, I would like guys to engage with you, and I'm gonna go because I need to wake up like in 3 hours.
Stay with us if you can for one moment, Verlaine, while we
I
go.
told you I'm gonna be Russ and Jamie, and then I'm gonna go.
So Taras and then Jamie. Taras, go ahead. Taras, are you with us?
Good afternoon, good night, good morning, whatever time zone you are. I would like to ask that we let Verlaine to rest, because we need her for interpreting when we will be having a beach party in Crimea shore. And so we need to save her energy for that point. And I know that almost every night it happens that she's doing this like nonstop duties for so many hours. So let her sleep a little bit. So, and I would like to join this conversation about drones. I'm sorry, I just joined maybe 15 minutes ago, so I didn't hear where you started, but I believe the first part I heard is about every unit needing a drone or drone operator or some reconnaissance unit. Is that correct? Is that a topic we are on right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I think I'm not a military expert at all. I'm just an engineer who is trying to apply my skills to help Ukraine. So from what I understand, the type of drones and the usage of drones in this war by Ukrainian is morphing into new and new kind of scenarios. So as Ukraine has capabilities to use drones in different situations, the same way they develop some new tactics and new skills. And what we can talk about is what that ideal capabilities would be and what ways they can be used to actually save people's lives. Because I truly believe that any technologies, especially technologies like drones, which can use this third dimension to be on the sky, can save lives. And whatever we can do to give these tools to Ukrainians, it will be first to balance some capabilities which Russian might have in more quantities, like the firepower, their brute force, like numbers, by using a technology. So any usage where we can save lives, it's welcomed, and I hope that Ukraine will be getting more and more of these tools, either donated by Ukrainian partners on the West or built in Ukraine. So I think when you mention about every unit need to have a drone, I think that type of usage is about having some kind of a situational awareness around your battlefield, in your location, to know what the Russians are doing around you, where they are attacking, what are they planning, what kind of a dangerous situations might be developing. So just like general situational awareness. But more important is to have a situational awareness on a larger scale, like on a battalion or maybe in a brigade level. And for that reason, there is now a trend that special drone reconnaissance units are formed here and there on multiple spots, and they are equipped and they are trained, and they have a better drones, better tools, which cover larger areas. And that I think what's different this spring comparing to last fall or comparing to last summer or last spring. So it's moving from this very kind of consumer-oriented drones to the specially built, which covers this like a middle layer of reconnaissance. Not necessarily the strategic layer, but at least battalion and brigade level layer. And we are talking about infantry, right? So that's just a very simple, massive usage type. Then for the other type of units like artillery, their needs are different. They need a different type of drones, and that's also in a big demand to be able to balance Russian artillery powers and their firepower with smarter and more precise artillery targeting.
Fairlane, go ahead if you can to answer Paris's questions.
It's not a question. I mean, it's rather a comment, not a question. I don't know.
I
don't know what the topic was.
Alan. Yeah, guys. Taras, thank you for your remarks. He's absolutely right. He didn't have any question. He just back. Actually, like for those who are unaware, depending on the missions and the types of, as Taras mentioned, types of situations, we have different drones for different purposes. So we have drones for patrols, we have drones for recon, drones for recon in the buildings, drones for recon on really long distance, UAVs conducting also like all round patrolling, and UAVs going destination and back. It's there is a variety of drones depending on their specs, and it's all in the hands of the operators to identify which drone we're going to be using for which mission, and it also depends on what is actually within the unit, because our units once again are equipped. They have they have already, even in Ukraine, manufactured some new like military grade drones, and outside of Ukraine it's also happening, but it's still not enough. Like the demand is so high, even like with this the drones, with the HF drones, it's like we need them because we can restore the metal, we can restore the iron, we can restore the hardware. We can't restore human lives, and it's just I would pay, I don't know, with the kidney if I could have bought like a couple hundred drones for, for for saving the lives of my soldiers. But unfortunately, I had some problems with kidneys, so my kidneys are not good for donations. This is maybe the point why I'm still functioning with both of them. Joking aside, I think we had one say something.
Good night, Verlaine. I'll DM you, but it's good news.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I'm gonna be waiting eagerly.
I'm gonna eat dinner, so go to bed.
I'm actually sitting in bed and contemplating whether I should have some melatonin or something, because I think like it's gonna be hard on sleeping. But yeah, thank you so much. Massive hug to all of you. Wishing you good night, good morning, good evening, whatever. See you in a bit.
Thank you very much, Verlaine, for your time tonight. Get rest, sleep well. I know every day is a busy day for you. And we have an opportunity right here tonight at MriyaReport to make a difference for Verlaine and the Rubige Rapid Response Brigade. And that is to raise money to supply reconnaissance drones and radios. So reconnaissance, as Verlaine just said, a key need. You can just go to the second tweet up in the nest and follow that link to a PayPal donation page and help the Rubige unit, help Verlaine get drones to them, recon equipment to them. It's urgently needed. So please be as generous as you possibly can. We will appreciate that tonight. Peter, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just coming into the drones. I'll let you into a secret. I'm learning to fly one, and because I do have a need for it with my aviation involvement here in the UK, and yeah, I've been looking at the various types of drones, and they are incredibly sophisticated. Alan, do you know that you can even get one to follow you home? It'll fly completely by itself, and you can get it to follow you, and you can get it to follow a car. You can get it to circle round an object and film that. They have very sophisticated cameras. The ones that I'm familiar with are actually the DJI variety, and there's a tiny one which is called the Mavic Mini Pro, which is 250 grams. It's ultra lightweight, and that'll probably cost you about, if talking dollars, probably just under $1,000. Then there's the Mavic 3, which is a slightly bigger drone, which is probably about $1,800 to $2,000. But both of those two little drones are incredibly sophisticated. And what they can do is just unbelievable. They even have sensors. The Mavic 3 has 4 sensors on it. So it can sense from the side so that it won't run into a tree or it won't run into something else. It'll sense where it is and stop itself from crashing into it. So I'm very novice at the moment. I've kind of sat some bits of exams, etc. And I bought a really cheap thing because I knew I'd be crashing it all the time. So I just thought I'd tell you that little bit.
Thank you, Peter. Flying drones is incredibly difficult and demanding. That's what we hear from Verlaine. And when the drone operators for the Rubige unit join us, we will learn a lot more about their experience on the battlefield. Taras, go ahead. Taras.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was talking to the muted microphone. I want to respond to Peter's remark about the drones, and I appreciate his line and learning that. Right now, I think the Mavic Mini is mostly used for training of the operators because it's cheaper, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's easier to repair, but for the actual unit level reconnaissance, the Mavic 3 is probably the best tool for the buck you can get. So nothing else can compare for $2,000 or $2,500, which can do as much as Mavic is doing for this very small radius, like around 2-3 kilometers around your position. But that's become a de facto standard for the reason of the camera and of stability of the flight. So that one, the regular model, not a special one, like not a cinematic and not classic, but the regular model for this money with the almost like 30x optical zoom, it's uncomparable. And I see it's kind of now become a very common tool for across the front line. So I wouldn't be surprised learning that there are maybe 5,000-10,000 of them around, but they are constantly in need for any type of mission. If nothing else, this battery is available, I would say, because it's still a consumer type drone. It's still susceptible to Russian electronic jamming and electronic warfare efforts. It's very fragile from that perspective. But if you look around, there is nothing else you can do for the money. And the next level would be, as I said, a professional units who are dedicated to reconnaissance, who are not just using that as a second or third duty, but the ones who can fly planes, who can cover martial art areas, and then which can support the entire section of the front line, not just like one trench or one blog post or whatever. So if somebody wants to contribute, that's one way of help. You can pay money, and Ukrainians actually figure out how to buy them cheaper than they are anywhere here in the stores. Or you can ask somebody to deliver them. It doesn't matter, but it's actually cheaper to buy in a large quantities from the supplies which some Ukrainian groups were able to secure. But they can buy them for the 30-50% discount when they pay in bulk. Thank you.
Thank you, Taras. And that's why a contribution to Verlaine's fundraiser, to the Rubige Rapid Response Brigade, is so important. Verlaine can buy these drones for less. It is far better for her to buy them in Ukraine or from Ukraine than for us to try to acquire drones here in North America and ship them to Ukraine for a couple of reasons. They're more expensive here, and the time to get them onto the battlefield is extended. Verlaine can acquire them and get them into the hands of her drone operators practically overnight. And so that's why it's so important for our listeners here to make a donation through MriyaReport to the Rubige unit for these recon drones, for the radios, for communications on the battlefield. It will make a tremendous difference. And as Verlaine said, they need hundreds, if not thousands. And that's why Ukrainians are recovering and repairing drones and getting them right back into operation as quickly as possible. But anything you can do, any contribution you can make will be welcomed. Any generosity you can show will be matched by other listeners here. So your dollar will bring more dollars. Your commitment will strengthen the commitment of other donors. So please do that tonight. It's the second tweet in the nest, a very easy way to get to a PayPal donation page. Thank you all so much for doing that tonight if you can. Nick, and then Michael. Nick.
Just to add to another reason to send money, and this will appear marginal, but if you purchase these items, certainly retail in the United States, you will pay sales tax on them, and we would prefer, if any tax has to be paid, that it be value-added tax paid in Ukraine to the Ukrainian government to help them finance their war effort. And the other thing, since you just finished the appeal, Alan, is to remind people that donations to MriyaReport go through PayPal, but you do not need a PayPal account. You only need a credit card.
That's true. You only need a credit card. And most of what you give gets right into Verlaine's hands. And I say most. There are PayPal processing fees. So somewhere between 88% and 98% of your donation goes exactly where you want it to go. We work with PayPal to reduce those processing fees as quickly as possible to as less as possible as they can be. Taras, and then to Michael. Taras? Taras, you may again be speaking into a muted mic.
Yep. So thank you. So I just want to add another reason. So not only you're saving on a sales tax here in US or in a VAT tax in Europe, which is much larger. Second is that you don't. Your donation is tax deductible, so you're saving on your taxes when you donate directly to the MriyaReport. And a third one, as I mentioned, there is a big discount when Ukrainians are able to secure them in bulk quantities. And actually, there is a fourth one. The Ukrainian government forgotten the sales taxes on anything like drones which are imported to Ukraine. So in Ukraine, nobody is paying sales tax on this type of items because the decision by the government to help bring more drones to Ukraine.
Very good points, Taras. And this is a good opportunity for me to remind people that MriyaReport is a 501c3, a registered nonprofit organization, a registered charity with the U.S. Internal Revenue Service. So we have met all of their requirements. So your donations to MriyaReport are tax deductible, exactly as Taris said. So if you're from the United States, today on tax day, you can make a donation and get a tax deduction for next year's filing. And I do encourage you to do that tonight. Michael, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Sorry,
Michael.
Alan. I was speaking into a muted mic there. I wanted to touch something or recap something and amplify something that Tara said. Yes, I have already contributed to at least a drone's worth of contributions through a number of organizations, as a matter of fact, and everyone that has the capacity to do so. You know, these things aren't cheap, admittedly, but I wanted to point out that as a drone operator myself, one of the most important things you can do, if you don't want to pitch in to buy one, if you want to do something that's sort of small and incremental that has an enormous impact, think about what's in the critical path of that drone operating. It's the batteries. So in addition to buying drones, I think there should be a side campaign to send them batteries, because they're limited. If you're looking at the Mavic, 30 minutes or so, and that depends on the wind. If it's fighting the wind, then you're burning energy to maintain hover. So your loiter time drops considerably. And the Mavic 3 batteries, well, the Mavic batteries, for example, are $45 to $75. It depends on the website. And if you get into the Mavic 3 and the other models or any other brands, the point is they need batteries, because the vehicle itself, the drone, is flying on this battery, and it has a cooling system. It has cooling fans on it. That's not what's taking the wear and tear. The drone itself, aside from maybe being shot at from guys on the ground, but it's the battery. It's the loiter time on station. They've got to come back, right? So if they got to go out, say 10 minutes out to get to some viewability of a target, that's 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back. It's wind dependent as to how long they can stay there. So you get my point. So batteries, they're more easily attainable. They're cheaper. Should be like on a separate shopping item as far as ideas, I think. Just my opinion, for people who might be wanting to contribute in that vein. And to something that Tara said, I think it was Tara's, you know, these things operate on, it's a multiple of frequencies. So that they have a GPS radio, they have a video link back to the operator, and they have the command and control link back to the operator. So it's actually quite complex. So when the further you get away, if you weren't taking video or live filming when you send one of these things out, you can get a hell of a distance away. I've seen videos, guys taking them 5 miles in a no wind situation, because remember, if you're flying in wind, if you're going against the wind to get 5 miles away, then you can come back home really quickly. And it has a countdown timer on the battery usage. And if you don't get it back home, it's going to land safely itself. But just thought I'd sort of amplify some of that. But again, the batteries, super important. I don't have enough. They come with 2, and I wish I had 4. So think of that as a guy in the battlefield.
One reason why we ask people to give money is, you know, you aren't specifying that you want to buy exactly 1 drone or exactly 2 drones, and drones includes all of the necessary support package, and indeed some of the toys are not even drones. So I'm sure the people doing the shopping have a very precise idea of exactly how many batteries they need to have for each drone. They'll probably have some. They'll have a number. You know, for 100 drones, they'll have 274 batteries and 88 fast chargers, and they will have optimized this either now or perhaps when the shooting stops. NATO are going to be all over Ukraine to find out how they should incorporate drones effectively and consumer drones into their doctrine. It's going to be very interesting, because I don't think there's been, I mean, I'm sure there have been other examples, but I'm trying to think of another example in warfare where consumer products that you literally buy at Target have had such an effect on the battlefield, and you know, without the requirement, let alone the overhead of a military procurement program. You know, these things are literally being brought up, well, a Target or whatever the Ukrainian equivalent is, and one of the challenges for Western militaries is to find a way to integrate this into their forces without finding themselves paying $30,000 per for a DJI drone that they could get for $450 or $750 at the local electronics store. It's quite the conundrum. Peter.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more military applications that will come in the future. With just springing to mind is you know, a larger drone that can carry guns or rockets which protect helicopters when they're picking up people and stuff like that, who can clear the air around the helicopter. And you know, I'm sure there will be loads of developments in the future with drones.
Yes, but at that point, I think we need to stop really equivocating with the word drone, because you know, you can have you could build a remote controlled F-16. I think we have to get a little bit beyond the idea that a drone is simply, you know, we file them all under UAVs, but clearly, you know, NATO will also have uses for drones that can fire rockets, you know, the Bayraktar type situation, and that of course will have to go through defense procurement channels, partly because it's lethal and partly because it's big and expensive. But the idea that with less than, you know, with a $400 consumer item, that you can become so much more efficient as a fighting